St Chad's Church, nestled in the heart of Stafford, appears to be just another Victorian Gothic church with Romanesque features. Step inside, however, and you are transported back through time to medieval Britain, a time of crusades and powerful landowners. St Chad's not only stands as a testament to centuries of faith and devotion, but in addition it is a church of legend and mystery. In fact, legend says, St Chad's owes its very existence to an important and powerful Saxon called Orm, who married the daughter of Stafford Castle's Norman lord. Built in the 12th century, with construction probably beginning in 1140 AD, St Chad's is the oldest building in Stafford. It is constructed of grey sandstone quarried at nearby Tixul. Over nearly 900 years of history, St Chad's has witnessed a changing world and has changed with it. St Chad's has stood at the centre of Stafford. As monarchies came and went, civil war erupted, and the Industrial Revolution changed the way people lived and worked. Following this, the empire was drawn into 2 world wars. St Chad's did not escape unscathed. Over almost 9 centuries, St Chad's has experienced neglect and revitalisation as financial and congregational support ebbed and flowed. This brought about many changes to the fabric of the church, but before we can talk about the fabric of the church, we must journey back more than 1,000 years to 7th century Saxon England. By the 7th century, Christianity was spreading throughout Anglo-Saxon Britain. Monks journeyed far and wide from village to village, usually on foot. Their audience would largely consist of illiterate peasant labourers and tradespeople. Prominent among these monks was Chad, who later became the first bishop of Lichfield. A key Christian principle was the notion of people coming together in worship, and the idea of constructing dedicated buildings spread from town to town. Initially, these dedicated structures would have been wood, and a wooden religious structure may well have sat on the same site as today's St Chad's Church. However, the story of the St Chad's we know today starts with the arrival of the Normans in 1066, and their prolific building of stone castles and churches. The original 12th century stone church was not built in the classic Norman cruciform style, which appears like a cross when viewed from above. Research indicates that it closely resembled Kilpeck Church in Herefordshire, which has remained virtually unchanged since the 12th century. Kilpeck has a curved apse but has no tower or transepts. Transepts are the areas of a church that form the arms of the cross in many Norman churches. Unlike Kilpeck, St Chad's did not remain unchanged. In the 14th century, the chancel was remodelled, and the earlier rounded arches were replaced with stronger pointed Gothic arches that were able to support the tower. At the time, 6 bells inhabited the tower. Also, the curved apse was replaced by a larger rectangular structure with lancet windows. In the 17th century, civil war erupted, and Oliver Cromwell and his Puritans' dislike of ornamentation changed St Chad's interior. Carved figures were covered by plaster, and the walls were whitewashed. During this period, Isaac Walton, author of The Complete Angler, was a parishioner and supporter of the church, and paid for a churchyard wall to be built. The 18th century saw more change. The churchyard was sold, and houses and shops soon filled the land, with only a narrow tunnel providing access to the church. The 18th century also saw the collapse of the West End, which is the main entrance into St Chad's. A Stafford builder, Richard Trubshaw, rebuilt the side in the 1740s using bricks. This West End brick wall was hidden by the shops on Greengate Street well into the 19th century. 4 of the church's 6 bells were sold in 1757 to fund ongoing restoration. By the 19th century, the building was in a sorry state of dilapidation. In 1853, a May edition of the Staffordshire Advertiser reported that the church was to be restored in memory of Isaac Walton. In 1856, the same paper reported the church's reopening, although work continued for many years. The extensive restoration uncovered the interior carvings and decorations which had been hidden since Cromwell's Puritan rule almost 100 years before. Some carvings were in perfect condition, having been hidden by the pulpit, while others needed some restoration. New aisles were also rebuilt on the original aisle foundations using stone from the original quarry at Tixall. In 1874, Sir Gilbert Scott, who was a prolific English Gothic revival architect, continued restoration. This included building the current Greengate facade in a Romanesque style out of stone. The statue of St. Chad that occupies the centre niche was donated by Gilbert Scott. Following Scott's death, work continued, and a new aisle and transept were built on the northern side. Unbricking the northern arcade followed, and the body of the church was whole again. The 20th century saw, well, quite a few improvements and additions, with perhaps one of the most significant being the construction of the south transept, which was completed in 1955, a full 800 years after the construction of St. Chad's first began. Finally, we reached the 21st century, and you know the work goes on. The leaking roof was repaired, which I must say led to the departure of numerous buckets. The church has also received some wonderful additions. In 2003, a stained glass window of St. Chad was installed above the entrance. 2018 saw the installation of 2 more stained glass windows illustrating the River of Life and the Tree of Life. Much of the interior of the church is extravagantly decorated with strange and peculiar carvings depicting animals and faces. The meanings and reasons for many of these are lost in time. 12th century chevron decorations can be seen at the eastern end of the nave. In addition, many carvings known as beakheads adorn the columns. Many of these carved heads and creatures are original features of the church. Similar carvings can be found in some Norman churches, but St. Chad's has a number that are unique. Over the years, parishioners and visitors have theorized over what these carvings depict. At the time, medieval England was still on the cusp of change from pagan beliefs to Christianity, and the majority of people were illiterate. Were the carvings supposed to frighten, or were they an aid to teaching people who could not read? How much long-established beliefs influenced these carvings, or even how much creative freedom the stonemasons were given, may also have been factors in creating the mysterious carvings we see today. Some say there are carvings of Adam, David and Goliath, and even a 12th century version of Speak No Evil, Hear No Evil. Look at the carvings yourself and imagine what they might have meant to medieval churchgoers. Do you remember Orm, the Saxon landowner? Well, a carved Latin inscription on the capital stone of the northeast pillar of the tower provides a clue to who commissioned the church. The Latin inscription translates as, "Orm it was who had me built." Another legend related to the carvings was that the stones were carved by captured Saracen stone masons brought back from the Crusades. If true, it would explain what some believe is a Middle Eastern mythology influence. However, master stone masons and master craftsmen were highly sought after and travelled extensively across Europe to wherever the next castle, church or cathedral was required. Many of these masons would be from Mediterranean areas where much of the expertise originated. They may have had darker skins and been unable to speak the local language, giving rise to many unfounded rumours among the people of Stafford. Today, 900 years after the first stone was laid, St. Chad's still offers a warm welcome to all.